What's up, everybody? My name is Dan. Welcome to the Friday morning freestyle right here on the Hard Knocks Talks Facebook page. This morning we have Saskatoon man, person in recovery, Aaron Gleadow.
You got it.
All right.
Yeah.
And see, I thought the wrong thing happened, so we can relax now.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I feel so much better.
While you're talking, we might as well bring you on screen. How's it
All
going?
right. I'm doing well, Dan. Thanks for having me this morning. I'm super stoked to be here. It's a beautiful day outside and a great day to just be alive and be sober and be here with you and spend some time this morning. So,
You know, you say a beautiful day, and some might contribute that to sunny, but it's actually cloudy out there, and the smell of rain is in the air, and that's beautiful. We haven't smelt that enough yet this year.
it's awesome. I love waking up to that smell, actually. And yeah, it's been pretty dry. So, beautiful does not always constitute sunshine for me. Absolutely not.
And we can relate that to recovery too, if we wanted to.
I think so.
You know, I've talked a lot about that in the past. It's the hard times that I am grateful for, and not to say like when I go into a hard time, like I'm like, oh yay,
Yeah.
hard things are coming, you
Yeah.
know. But like I've been around and I've been through enough shit in my recovery to know that there's always lessons and there's always growth and there's always new things and new ways of thinking on the other side of those hardships. So yay rainy days.
Yay rainy days. Yay for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning, Twinkle. How are you this morning? Thanks for the comment. If you're just tuning in now, drop us a comment. Also, there's a featured link at the bottom of your screen there. If you're watching on a cell phone, it should be there if you're on a laptop too or whatever. If you're interested in hearing a powerful story from a woman, a British Columbia woman who tragically lost her son to alleged suicide while incarcerated, and how she has found her way through that and has learned to live a productive life, making use of her pain. Check that out. Sunday night coming. You can click the link at the bottom of the screen there. Set a reminder if you tap going once you're in there. Facebook will remind you, so please don't miss out. Please tell some people. We would love to give Lana, her name is, we would love to give Lana a meaningful audience to share her message to. So help us out there. Aaron, we met a few months.
I think it's been about a year now, actually.
No, it hasn't.
It has. Yep. Yeah. It's been about a year.
I was wondering why you looked more wrinkly when I saw
I
you
know.
today.
Well, I've aged. I've aged.
So anyways, you were reaching out to me with two hats on, one through, you know, a person in recovery, another through a local organization. And we had a great discussion about, you know, ways that we might collaborate in the future through both of those avenues. And we haven't really talked a whole bunch about your recovery.
No.
But this morning you brought up a very interesting point in your life where you say, in fact, alcohol saved your life.
It's weird to say that. It feels unnatural to say that, but yeah. And I mean, let's just jump right into it. Alcohol, it's been a factor in my life that has done many things in my life. The thing that might sound the most surprising is one day it actually did save my life. And that was, you hear about rock bottoms and that type of thing. If I had to put a day to it, it would probably be my rock bottom. It was a day I woke up in the morning, and it's a unique feeling, but I woke up that morning, and this was actually a full year before I got sober as well, that this happened. But I woke up that morning believing I wouldn't live through the day.
Hang on a minute now. So you hit rock bottom a year before you got sober.
I did.
Did you stay at that rock bottom for the next year, or did you start making progress?
Yeah, interestingly enough, during that year, to jump ahead for a second, I throughout that year looked for every single way I thought possible of getting sober on my own. So it was a hell. It was a hell of a year. It was me struggling, and every time I met or tried some sort of strategy or technique of getting sober and it wasn't working for me, it put me right back to stage one. But something happened on that day where, that we had just spoken about, and I'll tell you a bit more about it in a second, but something happened that day that pushed me, and it made me so tenacious. I knew there was a life under there. I didn't know how to achieve it. I didn't know how to get to it. I didn't know what it would look like. I didn't know what I would look like at all, but I knew I wanted to live. And so I knew in order to live, I had to get rid of booze because it was killing me. It was killing me quick. By the end, it was, it's a progressive disease. We all know that. And it's a disease that continues to get worse. And typically, as it gets worse, the end is terminal. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. It was a tough year. It was a very, very tough year of trying to figure out my road to recovery, with a lot of starts and stops. But that first day, a year before I ended up in treatment, I left the house that morning fully thinking that I wasn't returning to anything.
Did that feel comfortable to you? Were you like expecting relief?
I was expecting relief. At the same time, it was probably the most psychological turmoil I've been in my life that day. The pain that I felt and was experiencing, throughout the entire period, but came to a catalyst that day. And I felt bare. I felt like my soul was bare, that my skin was stripped off me, that I was just like burning alone somewhere. The pain was excruciating. And it's interesting to talk about psychological pain as being excruciating. Normally we equate that to physical pain, but it was one of the most excruciating, painful days of my life. Waking up and believing that was the only option left for me,
So I know, like for me, I've had thoughts like that in the past too. And I remember being in that and in such pain that I just wanted to end. And the thoughts of ending it all were strangely comforting. Like they're like even albeit a very dark and permanent solution, and not typically a solution someone would call like healthy.
Yeah.
There was still like, okay, this can all be over somehow.
Yeah.
So can you relate to that?
I can, more on the day to day, like every night, kind of falling asleep, while passing out, really. And when I was in addiction, I never really fell asleep healthily. It was always under copious amounts of substances to try to get me to sleep and then in the morning wake up. But, I had that sort of every night hoping that I wouldn't wake up. That always gave me a little bit of peace at night, weirdly. But in the morning I'd wake up and my,
problems were waiting for you
at the door, right?
Yeah.
Like just not even at the door, on the pillow. So
got a comment coming in here.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
We've got Kay Renee. Sounds like
you
someone you might know.
Hey, Kay Renee. Yes, I am in recovery.
Renee says, Aaron, I had no idea you were a recovery brother.
I am. Absolutely.
Cat's out of the bag.
Cat's out of the bag.
Everybody knows.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Go.
Recover out loud. That's what I always say.
Yeah. So tell us then, you mentioned that, you believed that day you expressed that day alcohol saved your life.
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did that work?
Yeah. So I left the house that day. I'm with the kids. I have 3 boys and their mom, who I'm separated from. And I left the house that day with a mission to isolate myself. I was in normally a dark place of isolation day in and day out, but this time I wanted to really do it properly. And I left the house in my SUV and drove around aimlessly for much of the day, kind of drinking in the countryside, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And as the sun was going down, I think it was in the winter months, so it was kind of dark. I swung by Canadian Tire beside the liquor store at Preston Crossing here, and my idea was actually to go in and buy tubing to go from the exhaust to the cabin of the vehicle. And I found I had forgotten my credit card. I had no money on me. I had $20 cash in my car. And I knew I couldn't afford booze and what I thought I was going to do. I couldn't afford to put the plan into motion. I couldn't afford to buy the materials to put the plan into motion, if you will. And booze won, man. Booze won. It was either one or the other. And I reached for booze. And I remember what I bought. It was weird. I don't know why. I bought rum that day. And
you typically buy rum?
Oh man, I was the cheapest vodka you could possibly afford by the end.
That day, that day was different.
If it has like a Russian prince on it or something, I was good to go, man. Yeah.
Are you still triggered by pictures of Russian princes?
Actually, no. I'm okay with Russian princes now, so that's a good thing. Yeah.
Progress.
Yeah, I know. Wow. Hey, I could probably even visit Moscow. Not that I would want to right now, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but so it came to a point where I realized I needed the booze, and I bought the booze and went out and I parked in the middle of a farmer's field halfway to PA, because that was the direction my wheels took me, and ended up sitting out there for a few hours and just reflecting on my life. I sobbed alone in that vehicle for hours, and then drove home.
Hmm.
And when I got home, I had this weird, overwhelming sense of wanting to survive. Um, I was, I was in a terrible state, but I pulled myself together and walked into my boys' room and I read them stories that night and I hugged them and I held them.
Mm-hmm.
And that night I went to bed for the first time in years with an overwhelming sense of wanting to live.
Hmm. Was that like, because I know like when in the past, when I have come to realizations or when I have found acceptance towards certain things, a sense of relief comes over me.
Huge.
So was it that day that you made the decision
Yeah.
that you were going to try to live a better way?
Yeah.
Now, when you made that decision, was it scary for you, or
Absolutely.
was it like, oh, thank God?
It was scary. I had
Yeah.
no idea what to do.
Yeah.
I had no idea where to go. So by this point, I had been in AA a few times. Like I started going to recovery basically to AA when I was 19 years old.
Mhm.
I'm 46.
Mhm.
So, and when I made it into treatment, I was 44.
Mm.
So, I mean, 25 years, and so when I made that decision, or sorry, where were we there for a second? Right. The previous times I'd gone to AA, I think I was always looking for a solution, or maybe even when I was younger, a way of being able to drink responsibly, or take a break and then go back out, and it's going to be different. So I
Mhm.
tried that a few times, and of course, every time I tried, it just ended up worse.
Mhm.
So this time was completely different. That feeling that I had, and now that feeling, of course, is over 3 years ago, where I had that day.
Mhm.
And that has stuck with me. It drives me every day, this fierce intensity of wanting to live and being the best person that I am inside, and the authentic me.
Mhm.
So of
Hmm.
course I had to get rid of the booze before I could start working on that discovery.
Yeah. Got another comment coming in from RK Heiss.
Oh, Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
Ryan saying, hello from your bro at Mickey
M&S.
Nation.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan. Nice to see you, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening this morning.
Yeah, and thanks for the comment. If y'all don't
Yeah.
know, and if you're all just tuning in, there's a link at the bottom of the screen there. You can tap that link to set a reminder for this Sunday night's show. We've got a woman coming to tell her story about losing her son to an alleged suicide while he was incarcerated, and how she worked through that and found a safer way. So also, thank you everyone for commenting. Thank you everyone for liking. Every single comment we get, every single like we get, every single share we get, it tells the algorithm that what we're saying and what we're doing here matters, and it will show us to more people. But we have to tell the big machine, hey, we're important. So thank you for helping us do that.
Yeah.
So when you walked into those rooms, and it sounds to me like you maybe walked in for the first time a few times, what was it like? Did it feel like it was like you had found a home? Like, did you, no, it wasn't like that.
No,
hey?
man.
No.
See, I had the blinders on so strong. I thought I was very unique to everybody else in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that their problems didn't apply to me, that my drinking was different, that I could get a hold of it. Like, there's no reason why I can't just mental my way out of this kind of thing. And throughout the times that I had gone into AA and tried recovery prior to now, I always walked away with, I'm not bad enough yet. It's not bad enough. These guys are worse than me.
So you find someone bad. Did you ever go there to find someone worse than you so you could keep
Fuck
going?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I mean,
God bless
addiction's
AA.
insane, right? Like these are the types of things that it does to you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go to AA today to prove that I can drink.
To find a reason to drink.
That's
Wow.
addiction.
Wow.
Right?
You were a mess.
I was. I was a mess, Dan. A hot mess for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did it click over for you then? Like you went there sort of what you just described. When did the light start to come on for you? Was it, you said you mentioned you had a year in, and then obviously one day something stuck.
Yeah.
You went to treatment, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. What was it like walking into treatment?
Awesome. Actually awesome. By the time, so over the course of the year, I tried a few different methods. I tried some outpatient therapy. I had a physician prescribe me with a bunch of Valium to keep me from having a detox seizure. And that just made me sleep well for a week. And like nothing was working, right? So when I finally made it to treatment, and I went to Cedars Cobble Hill on Vancouver Island, when I walked through those doors, like you couldn't have kept me out, put it that way. I was running into treatment.
Mhm.
I was shedding everything I possibly could on the way in. Like I walked in and basically threw my phone across the counter and said, I don't want to see that thing for like months. I couldn't deal with life at all. In fact, when I was in treatment, very quickly after getting there, I realized I was petrified of the real world, of
Mm.
this world. I was absolutely petrified.
Mhm.
I didn't know how to live at all.
Mhm.
So
What was it, and maybe you can answer this and maybe you can. What was it that you saw in the real world that terrified you? Was it the ability to just make day-to-day decisions, or was it like the way that you thought the world was going to see you?
I think the second,
Uh-huh.
but I think more like even deeper than that, Dan, I think once I've taken the time to work through the things, um, it was the way that I perceived myself
Mhm.
that I thought the world could see. And I hated myself, and I thought I was despicable, and I thought I had made every wrong decision in the book, and I thought I had, I knew I was a mess,
Mhm.
and I'd lost any sort of touch with the inner child within me and the authentic me. And I thought and I felt like I was a charlatan, a complete false, like just a lie.
Mhm.
And I felt like everywhere I was in the world, that was just exuding out of me everywhere.
Everybody knew.
Everybody knew.
Yeah.
The bus driver knows.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
honestly, it was my anxiety was at such a state, and
Mhm.
my self-loathing and my self like just negative self-talk was at such a height that I couldn't be around anybody. So once I was in treatment, I was in this absolutely safe, locked in place
Mm.
where it was okay to be who I was at the time, I
Mhm.
think. So it gave me also, they took away all my responsibilities. So, I
And
mean, I
you're
had nothing.
yeah.
It's like I'm putty in your hands. And the day I walked in, I said, I will do absolutely anything that you guys tell me to.
Mhm. So short of your decision to leave, all of your decision-making capacities as far as returning to that toxic behavior had been taken from you.
Yeah,
And you had been so beaten down that your desire to stay there was greater than your desire to go and drink.
it was.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. It was way higher. And it's remained with me. It's
Mhm.
remained with me since then. Interestingly enough, like people ask me about triggers, what's it like going by a liquor store that you used to go to, or, because they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And a liquor store I used to go to, that means every liquor store in the city, essentially. So let's be honest here. I had my route.
Yeah.
Because none of them will be able to tell I'm an alcoholic if I only visit it
Oh
once every
yeah.
second, third
See, I
day.
never gave a shit about that. And I don't know why,
Really?
but lots of people do. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
saying like I'm, any
yeah.
kind of, but I remember like I'd go to the same one every day and be like, oh, hey, how's it going?
Give me my booze for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for me, I don't know why. Again, it was that living that constant lie of not wanting to show who I was to the
Mhm.
world. I should actually rephrase that. It's not wanting to show who I was to the world, because I feel like I'm doing that now.
Mm.
But what I was presenting was in me.
Mhm.
It was so convoluted by addiction and mental health problems at the time
Mhm.
that yeah,
You didn't know how to present yourself any other way.
not at all.
Not at all.
No, no.
Got some comments.
Hello from rainy London,
Yeah,
Aaron.
Naomi, all the way from
Givens,
London.
how are you? So Naomi knew me when I was 17, 18 years old, and I was traveling in Israel at the time.
In
And
Israel.
in Israel.
How worldly.
Yeah, no, I got around a bit.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Did you get
spent
drunk in Israel?
many times with Naomi.
Oh, really?
Actually, yes.
Naomi.
She was a bad influence. No, I'm just
Oh.
kidding. She actually wasn't. She was a good influence. Even at that time, I remember the people I was traveling with had some concerns about my drinking.
Mhm.
I was 18. I turned 18 in Israel
Mhm.
because I had dropped out of grade 12 and decided to take a whack at cash that was kind of set for university or whatever.
Mm.
And my parents gave me their blessing, and I just did not have a direction at the time.
Mhm.
I had started drinking by then. Obviously it wasn't to the level it had evolved into,
Mhm.
but yeah, I ended up in Europe, and I spent 10 months in Europe, in the Middle East, just backpacking around and looking to find myself. And honestly, it was an amazing trip. I didn't find myself.
Mm.
I found more questions than anything, but at the same time,
That can be beautiful too.
yeah. I've still got some really tight contacts back from that era of my life, which is cool.
Mhm.
Naomi and another of my friends, Dave, that's also in England, are two buddies that I did some traveling with back then. It's cool
So
to see.
this is London, England. This isn't
It
London,
is.
Ontario.
Yeah, it's London, England.
Wow, we're
Yeah.
far-reaching today,
We
my
are.
man.
Yeah,
Holy
it's pretty
cow,
cool.
international.
Absolutely.
Wow.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting across the globe.
Yeah, and we've got Chelsea Stewart. of
Hi,
course.
Chelsea.
Chelsea saying, shout out from the gals at MNS.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's interesting to see what happened after I came out of treatment as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Did you
maybe
think you were cured?
no.
No.
In
Really?
fact, it was very obvious I wasn't.
Okay.
As soon as the booze was gone, I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
okay,
I'm sick.
I'm sick, man.
Yeah.
Like, crap."
Don't make me leave.
How many hours of therapy do you recommend?
Yeah.
It took a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
It took a long while. I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder right after I had gotten sober as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to deal with that. And I went into an outpatient treatment program for that here in town, which was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And but I also needed a lot of work on who I was, myself, my past, and coming to terms with it. I had a lot of guilt. I had a lot of self-resentment. I had resentment outwards as well. I had a lot of judgment within me that needed to be corrected, and not corrected so much as just I needed to
Understood.
come. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Understood. Yeah.
So now when you're talking about you had a lot of guilt and shame and resentment, was that all tied in to your alcoholism,
Mhm.
or were there other things that happened in your life that you were maybe running from?
Yeah. There's other things as well. So alcoholism, I think, was the solution to a lot of the problems I had, or at least that's where it came from. It allowed me to be numb and not deal with anything else. So the actual problems that I dealt with, and I'm still dealing with to some extent, and I think I will be forever, and that's okay. But I was diagnosed as an adult with ADHD, which explained a lot from my childhood, and then PTSD as well, and I grew up with a sense of not feeling like I was able to accomplish what I was supposed to accomplish.
What were you supposed to accomplish?
I don't know. So this is from a very early age that I remember having these feelings of incompetency.
You're not doing it right.
No,
Whatever it is.
whatever, everything. And that stuck with me for much of my life. And this wasn't because I was being told constantly I was screwing up either. A lot of this was just because I was observing the world. I knew there was something different about me. I couldn't put my finger on it.
Yeah.
And so as things unfolded, I just beat myself up more and more. Discovered booze at 17, and then it was game over.
What was the biggest thing you learned in treatment when walking out the doors? What was the one aha thing?
Ooh, that's a big question.
You're sweating now, brother.
I know. I'm like, holy smokes!
Are these lights hot? What's going on, man?
Turn this down, man. The biggest thing I learned in treatment: never give up. I think is got to be one of the hugest things I learned, and that is just that goes with hope. Obviously, never give up. Hope. And I've seen it in your memes. We've seen it around, but if you're still breathing, there's hope, and that is really one of the biggest things I learned in treatment. If you're standing up, if you're breathing, there's hope for a better life. And there always is. And it's out there. It's out there. It's not easy to find. I think that's something, and I mean, that's a whole nother talk, but like what we can do as society to be able to provide the proper care for people that are in addiction, and depending on the stage, and the aftercare as well, because removing the booze is nothing.
Yeah. No, the aftercare is such and I've always been a proponent of it, and I've always spoken very loudly because that's what I was able to get into. Like I went to treatment and I did the 28 days and they kicked my ass around the building, and I needed that. Some people don't. Some people don't need their ass.
That's
kicked.
right.
But I did, and I still do. That's never changed. But I mean, if I didn't have that, that structured environment to go to after, I had been removed from the substances, I can't say for sure that I would have been as successful as I was, having that level of accountability. I stayed in a program called the Coming Home program through Comfy.
Gotcha.
In Saskatoon. Yeah. And it was wonderful because I had this place that was safe, that was removed from the environment that I got so sick in. you know, and there was, I had to go to meetings, and I know that meetings don't really work for everyone, but they work for me, and I had to go, and I had to get the ticket signed, and I had to take weekly talk screens and case planning and all of the things. And because I did those things, I was able to gain access to my son, who had been apprehended quite quickly. You know, in fact, 6 months after I entered into recovery, when I walked through the doors into that detox, 6 months later, I had interim custody of my 3-year-old son.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a trip, let me
No
tell
doubt.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
How did that make you feel?
what's
Like
that?
when you got the, you know, 6 months in, suddenly you're given this interim custody of your 3-year-old. Was that like, I'm just curious, was that like a kind of a
It,
focal point in your recovery?
you know, I don't think that I had learned how to feel yet at
Okay.
that
Yeah.
point, because I don't look back and remember the feelings,
hmm
you know? And in fact, I don't necessarily look back and even remember the moment where he came bounding back to
hmm
me. But I know for sure that it happened,
hmm
you know, and use that for what you will. Me knowing that that happened, and remembering the overall experience of being a part of the process to make that happen, that I hold very close to me, and I talk about that very openly, because
hmm
I know how I do remember the hopelessness.
hmm
You know, I do remember that. I
Yeah.
remembered my last Christmas in active addiction and how lonely that was.
Whew.
Yeah. So, and when I say healing is dangerous,
hmm
can you relate to that?
Yeah.
You know,
Healing for me
mm-hmm,
has required a ton of vulnerability.
mm-hmm,
And throughout my life, I taught myself that vulnerability was dangerous
mm,
and it was scary
mm-hmm,
and it was bearing myself and what are people going to think? And for me, a big part of healing is obviously recovering out loud. I use
mm-hmm,
that tagline all the time. And sharing my story, I've had people reach out to me that I've been like, whoa, okay, I'm actually helping people by doing this.
mm-hmm,
But in order to do this, and this helps my recovery hugely, speaking about it, I do have to remain vulnerable.
mm-hmm,
I do have to share truth about myself. I have
mm-hmm,
to share, you know, aspects of my life that traditionally, people keep very secret and very quiet
mm-hmm,
and very closed, you know. Um, and so vulnerability and healing, just, I guess you could say, I've reached a point where I don't care if it's dangerous. It's what works for me,
mm-hmm,
and I know it's helping others.
mm-hmm,
So, but at first, yeah, no, I felt like it was dangerous. I felt like I was going to be judged. I didn't know if people would give me a job. I didn't know how people would respond to me returning to community from, you know, being in treatment for 60 days.
mm-hmm,
I didn't know how people would respond to me, you know, after the breakup of my family,
mm,
which had a great deal to do with my addiction, obviously,
mm-hmm,
and my own healing out of that addiction. Made me realize some things about my own life that I had to change. And so, yeah, I think dangerous in a term like that, dangerous for me. Oh, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there. It's not dangerous in a sense that it's going to ever push me back into active addiction.
yeah,
I don't think that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and the reason why I asked that, and I don't ask it all the time, but it came into my head, and I figured
hmm
I'd just chuck it at you
hmm
because I like watching you squirm.
I'm glad. I'm sweating quite a bit. I don't know if it comes across on camera or not, but
Maybe a little. Don't
a
worry about
little
it. Don't
bit.
worry about it.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just bugging you anyway. But I mean, like, in my life, I never had my first suicidal thought. And even like, if you know some of my story, like I've been through some things, right?
hmm
And despite how dark it got and how bad those things were, I never had my first suicidal thought until I was 9 months into recovery.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's interesting when I think about that time, I see the yellow key tag.
Yeah.
You know, the yellow, that's the 9 month key tag.
Yeah.
That's that. When I think about that time and I see that key tag, I remember that was when I wanted to, you know, I didn't necessarily wanted to, but the thought came into my head, like maybe it would
hmm
be easier if just ended,
hmm
you know, because like coming face to face with all of the things,
hmm
both real and not, you know, like there's been a lot of arguments that I've had in my life that with people in my head
hmm
that have caused me a lot of pain.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and it's a strange thing to say.
Yeah.
But so what did you do when you walked out of the treatment center and you had to come back to the community and you had to basically face the picture you thought other people had of you.
Yeah.
Is that when you went running to the rooms and you went running to therapy? Like how did you like, let's talk about the first like month.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what was that like for you?
Whew, heavy.
Yeah.
I came back from from treatment into like a third stage home. For those of you that don't know about it, basically it's sober living. There's weekly, piss tests. You have to hit a certain number of meetings and that type of thing. So
was it the Coming Home program?
No, it was through Oxford House.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which
sounds
is
a lot like what I had to do.
It's very similar. So I was with them for a few months when I first came home, and when I first came home, I think my expectations for myself were gray, to be honest. I mean, I didn't really know what to expect, but I did have a plan. So I left treatment with a plan. So for me, I didn't really know what direction to know, but I did have this checklist of things that I was supposed to do to stay sober from treatment, and I did it.
What were they?
It was like go to meetings.
Yeah.
It's a emergency preparedness plan. So if you have cravings, do you have certain people that you can reach out to or something that you can do to help take that away? Or if you're triggered, and are you actually going to use them? So I had that. And I was doing a lot of reading at the time, and just a lot of self-reflection. One thing, I was exhausted all the time. When I first was 2 months sober, straight out of treatment, I slept a ton all the time. So I didn't really have a direction as per it wasn't organic yet. My recovery wasn't organic. It was following a book, a list from my counselor in treatment. And I just followed those things and knocked them off, basically. But for the first month out, I had no idea what I was doing. I wasn't back to work yet. I was off. I was trying to figure out if it made sense to try to reintegrate, in my home. And that didn't work out. And that's okay. But there's a lot of things going on that I had to address, and I really didn't know what to address first or how. There's no manual for it, really. And the things that I was set up with, I actually got set up with in treatment. And we touched on this earlier, but like if I hadn't been set up when I was in Cedars to come back and live in Oxford and all that stuff, I don't know where I would have ended up. I needed that structure badly. I needed someone to say, just do this. Like, if you're not sure what you're doing, just freaking do this for a while.
Yeah. Be where your hands are.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I needed that too.
Yeah.
And I say needed. And as I move forward in my own journey, what is it that I know about what I needed? Maybe something would have been better, but at that time, that is what seemed to work for me. And I've been talking about this more and more lately, is about taking care of my own things in recovery. And what I use as an example of that is, so my mom's been in the addictions field for 40 years here in Saskatchewan. Yeah. Can you imagine watching your son, knowing what she knows? Like, she's seen it all, man.
Yeah.
She's seen it all.
Yeah.
So, and when I came out of treatment, she was like, I'm like, what do I, not unlike yourself, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to live. Yeah. And it was my mom that stood up and she said, go here, do this, do that. And I said, can I have a ride? And she said, no.
Nice.
But we did find me a bike.
I was about to say, did you ride a bike?
Yeah, I did, man.
Yeah,
I did. And I'm glad,
yeah.
Because like I said, like, I'm the kind of guy that needed my ass kicked around,
Mm-hmm.
but that was done with love.
Yeah.
And that's not even tough love. That's just like, looking back on that now, I can say that I handled that myself. I looked for guidance, but I did the legwork. That's literally. Right. Yeah. I would bike across town to go to a meeting.
Yeah.
And I'd show up an hour early, and I would sit outside the church, and I'd look at the sky, and I'd look at the big cross on the wall, and I'd be like, Mike, do I believe in Christianity? Do I believe in, trying to figure it? And I still do that. Yeah. I still don't know who I am. In fact, the language that I'm using today to describe myself is changing. Yeah. Like when I go into a room of recovery, like if I go into like a 12-step meeting or whatever, and I say, my name's Dan and I'm an alcoholic, I don't know if I truthfully I kind of think that my name's Dan and I'm a human being trying to live a better life. Yeah. Like, what's your thought around that language?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Actually, there's one thing, again, something that you posted, Hard Knocks Talks posted a little while ago. I think it was an analogy of looking at the difference between recovery and discovery. Mm-hmm. And I think it plays into what you're talking about. And that is something that I've actually done recently as well, changing sort of the language of where my recovery is. And I'm finding that it is much more on the discovery plane as well. It's looking internally and it's learning about myself. And it's actually taken nearly 2 years for me to establish sort of the infrastructure of my life. Like, I got my housing set up. My kids are with me 50% of the time now, which
Beautiful.
is phenomenal. I love
Mhm.
my boys so much. I've got a absolutely beautiful and supportive partner. I have an awesome job. I have an awesome place to work, and I have a community of people around me, such as yourself, that are just feeding me and helping me with my own recovery, because this is recovery for me. But through that, I reached a point where I've been so hyper focused on setting up these technical infrastructural things in my life that suddenly I've realized, hey, wait a second, I've done all this work. Something's still not sitting right, because I've missed part of the work. I haven't missed part of the work, but my focus is changing to more internal work. It's more on how I'm relating to my environment, how I perceive the world around me, how people perceive what I have to say and what I perceive what people have to say. I listen so much more now. I absorb so much more, and I'm so much more patient.
So what I'm hearing is you've done all of this external work in the technical framework of your life, and now you're feeling like you're maybe not ready for the results of that work.
I think I'm ready for the results of that work. I think it's more, I'm still at a stage, and maybe this will never go away. I'm still at a stage where I'm doing a lot of discovery of self. It's recovery has given me an understanding of myself I've never had before. And the more I get, the hungrier I get. The hungrier I get, the happier I am living in my own skin, the more I explore of who Aaron Gleadow really is. And the more authentic I can live, the more comfortable I am. So these are the things now that I've got this sort of life set up, and I didn't mean to do it by any order or anything like that. It's just, I tripped over my own feet for the last 2 years trying to figure out how to live again. Yeah, way longer than that. Yeah. Sober.
How old are you?
Sober. I've tripped over my feet for 2 years. Yeah, no, I'm 46. There's been a lot of trips. Yeah. You know, I had this analogy. I used to have this feeling inside of myself, and I've told this to my dad, I believe, actually, who might be listening from BC. I'm not sure. But in any event, I had this analogy where much of my life, and this was like for decades, and I used to actually have this as a dream. I felt like I was walking through life wearing big rubber boots in about a foot of river mud, like really sticky mud. And every footprint I took was just like something was sucking at my feet, trying to hold me back. And it's the closest analogy I could have to what it felt like just being me, especially in addiction. And the cool thing is, just the other day, I was walking and I was thinking, and obviously I'm not wearing rubber boots. It's not a physical thing. Again, it's a mental thing. But suddenly I realized that those rubber boots, they're not there anymore. I'm starting to walk through life much more naturally and at peace. And that's a pretty remarkable thing. Yeah.
So what does life look like moving forward for you? You talked a little bit about aspirations you had before the show, and of course we've got Lee in the chat. What's up, Lee Passmore? Thanks for chiming in this morning, Lee. Your beadwork is beautiful, man. I wish I had the newest lanyard that I just did a talk for this morning for a conference talking about the importance of words.
Oh, cool.
And part of the gratuity that I received from that was a beautifully couple of beautifully handmade cards and a nice small lanyard, a beaded lanyard that says recovery on it from cool. Lee. So Lee, thank you for taking part in that. And I will definitely use that little lanyard in my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, back to you.
Yeah, no, not at all.
What you talked about, some aspirations. I don't know how much you want to talk about, but what does it look like moving forward? How are you going to use what you've learned so far?
I'm kind of at the very initial stages of discovering what it's going to look like. I mean, I know I want to be involved in addictions and recovery world, just in general. I am. I mean, it's just through the way I talk and share and build connections with other people. It's such an important part of my life. It feels natural to be in it, not just working it for myself, but just in it in general. What it's going to look like, I don't know, because as these pieces of who I really am come together, I can almost remove myself and stand like on a shelf and kind of look down and be like, okay, yep, everything's coming together. What do I do with it? And that's really the question that I've got for myself right now. I've got a great job. I absolutely love my job, but there's this whole other side of my life that's pulling me in a direction. I don't know where that's going to lead. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I'm just trying to be open to the universe, because honestly, the more open I am, stuff keeps coming to me. So I wish I could just give you a better answer of this is what I'm doing. It's going to be awesome. People jump on board. We're going to, kill it.
I think that's a beautiful answer, because I know for a fact, like I didn't know where any of this was going the moment I put down the pipe in the bottle. I didn't know where any of this was going when I started Hard Knocks from my laptop. And looking forward, I don't know where any of this is going now.
Yeah.
So and frankly, like, if there's a clear picture in my head, I mean, that might take some of the excitement out of it.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
And I know lots of people are like, if you're not planning, you're planning to fail, So, and I talked about this last week, actually, a little bit too, the plan is becoming apparent to me as I move along. As my consciousness is becoming more aware of the world around me and the opportunities that it's presenting to me, my plan changes. Yeah. So anyways, is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you wanted to make sure that you shouted out?
Oh man, probably so much will come to my mind the moment we're off.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've really been enjoying the conversation. It's great. Yeah.
All right, cool.
So-
Well, I think maybe we've got Kay saying it's good to see you on this side, Lee. Oh, we're talking to Lee.
Spontaneous can be rewarding. Good to see you on the side, Lee.
Twinkle.
Spontaneous can be rewarding, absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, to touch, like, I liked what you just said about the plan kind of is building itself as you go along, and that's kind of how I feel a lot too. Just the more I do, the more I'm involved, the more people that I speak with, and the more conversations that I listen to, and it just sort of, things slowly are falling into place.
Awesome.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Well, let's cap it.
let's do it.
Yeah, we'll finish strong.
Sounds good.
Thanks everyone for watching and listening this morning. Don't forget to check us out live every Sunday evening. There's a link in the chat right now at the bottom of the screen. If you're listening to this, it'll be in the episode description. And also every Friday morning, we come at you live with the Friday morning freestyle. And I hope you all have a good weekend. And hopefully we'll see you Sunday night. Stay safe out there. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me, Dan.